السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته يا شيخنا. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته يا شيخنا.
Can we go on?
نعم يا شيخنا.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أما بعد, in continuation of the book, our reading from Siyar A'alām An-Nubala by Imām Adh-Dhahabi rahimahullah, where he captures the Seerah of Fatima bint Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We are reading Seerah to Fatima bint Rasulillah alayhi salatu wassalam wa radiyallahu anha, from the book Siyar A'alām An-Nubala by Al-Hafiz Al-Dhahabi, Abu Abdullah Shamsuddin rahimahullah. If you are with the print of Mu'assasat al-Risala, it occurs in the third volume from page 118. It occurs from page 118 to the print of Mu'assasat al-Risala with the checking and the update of Shaykh Ibrāhīm rahimahullah. Our last discussions were about Fatima radiyallahu anha, when the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was passing away. That would occur on page 120. That وَلَمَّا تُوفِيَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ وَسَلَّمَ حَضِرَ عَلَيْهِ وَبَكَتْ. That when the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam passed away, حَزِنَتْ عَلَيْهِ, he was so grieved over him, radiyallahu anha, وَبَكَتْهُ, and she cried regarding his passing away. وَقَالَتْ يَا أَبَتَاهِ إِلَى جِبْرِيلَ نَنْعَامْ. She was saying, Ya Abata, my father, Ila Jibreel and we announced his passing away to Jibreel. Ya Abata, Ajaba Rabban Da'am. Oh my father, Ajaba Rabban Da'am. He has answered his Lord, Da'ahu, who had called him. Ya Abata. Fatima also said, radiyallahu anha, Jannatu al-Firdausi ma'awahu, oh my father, Ya Bata, Jannatu al-Firdausi ma'awahu. She said all of these, and then Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi went to tell us some of the incidents before the Prophet passed away, alayhi salatu wasalam, where the Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, said a few things to Fatima, and then she wept, radiyallahu anha, and then he said a few things to her. وَأَخْبَرَهَا أَنَّهَا أَوَّلُ أَهْلِهِ لُحُوقًا بِهِ. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam told her that she would be from the first of his household, لُحُوقًا بِهِ, who would come to meet him, meaning who would pass away after him. وَأَنَّهَا سَيِّدَةُ نِسَاءِ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ, and that she is the head of the women in this ummah. It said that that is evidence that the best woman in this ummah is Fatima bint Rasulillah, because of this hadith. Because this hadith also has a love and expression, where it said that the Prophet said to her, radiyallahu anha, annaha sayyidatu nisa'il mu'minin, is the head of the women of the people of Iman. The head of the women of the people of Iman was Fatima. So the scholars say Fatima was more virtuous than Aisha, than Khadija, radiyallahu anhum, because the Prophet called her, radiyallahu anha, Sayyidatu Nisa'il Mu'minin, the head of the most virtuous, the best of the women of the people of Iman. That was Fatima, radiyallahu anha. So that made her fawdahikat. It made her smile. وَكَتَمَ ذَلِكَ. And then she kept it secret, because our mother, Aisha, radiyallahu anha, went to ask Fatima what her father had told her that made her weep once, and then on the second occasion she smiled. But Fatima, when the Prophet was alive, he did not tell the matter to Aisha. He rather said, مَا كُنْتُ أُخْفِي سِرَّهُ. I wasn't, or I would not, أُخْفِي سِرَّهُ. I will not expose a secret that the Prophet had told me. If he wanted all of you to hear, he would have said it to everybody's hearing. But he said it to me alone. Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, on page 1, paragraph, he's rahimahullah, وَلَمْ فِيَ أَبُوهَا تَعَلَّقَتْ آمَالُهَا بِمِيرَاثِهِ. When the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam finally passed away, alayhi salatu wasalam, the father of Fatima, وَلَمَّا تُوفِيَ أَبُوهَا, when her father passed away, تَعَلَّقَتْ آمَالُهَا بِمِيرَاثِهِ. Her attention came to the things that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam had left behind. And this is normal for every human being. She became, her anticipation, her hopes became so connected. She placed a lot of hopes in receiving from the mirath, from the property, from the inheritance of her father. وَجَاءَتْ تَطْلُبُ ذَلِكَ مِنْ أَبِي بَكْرٍ الصِّدِّيقِ. And she came asking for the things the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam had left behind. He was asking for radiallahu anhu, who, upon the consensus of the companions radiallahu anhum, after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the companions were all agreed radiallahu anhum upon the cat of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, them, that this was a man the Prophet would place in charge of our salat before he died. When the Prophet was ill, he regularly asked Abu Bakr as-Siddiq to lead salah. Affairs of our hereafter in the hands of Abu Bakr, then we should be free to place the affairs of our dunya in the hands of Abu Bakr. And upon that, radiyallahu anhum, there was a consensus of the companions on in Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhum, their head after the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. وَلَمَّا تُوفِيَ أَبُوهَا تَعَلَّقَتْ آمَالُهَا بِمِيرَاثِهِ. So as for Fatima radiyallahu anha, alayhi wasallam, passed her attention, her hopes, so to speak, to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. She came asking from Abu Bakr as-Siddiq about the things that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had left behind. If a man, any other man, if any other man leaves a daughter behind and an uncle, because the Prophet actually left alayhi salatu wasalam Abbas, his uncle, and Fatima behind. The person died before the two of them. If a man leaves behind Zakul and then his daughter, the ruling actually in the laws of inheritance in Al-Mirath is that the both of them will equal share what he has left behind. So if at all the Prophet was to be inherited and he was not to be inherited, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Fatima will take half of whatever was left and Abbas will take half of what was left. So the two of them will take half, radiyallahu anhum. But when she came, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أنه سمع من النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يقول, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq سمع من النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, عليه الصلاة, while he was saying that لا نورث, we are not inherited. We, that occurs in other riwayats of this hadith. نحن, the prophet, the prophets of Allah, لا نورث, are not inherited. تركنا فهو صدقات تركنا, so behind is صدق. We, نحن, the Anbiya, are no, we will not be inherited. So if son and he dies, the son will not inherit him, the daughters will not inherit him. Why? The Prophet of Allah, while he was saying that La Nurafu, we are not inherited. We, that occurs in other riwayats of this hadith. Nahnu, the prophet, the prophets of Allah, La Nur, are not inherited. Tarkna, fahuwa sadaqatun, tarkna, so behind is sadaq. We, Nahnu, the Anbiya, are no, we will not be inherited. So if son and he dies, the son will not inherit him, the daughters will not inherit him. Why? The prophets of Allah, they are not like this. They are different. These are from the khususiyatul anbiya wa rusul, from the things that are exclusive for the Anbiya and Rusul. Just like the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, when he died, one of the things Abu Bakr as-Siddiq also said, and other companions said, was that the Prophet of Allah, yudfanuna haythu yamutun, they are buried in the spot where they pass away. And that was why the Prophet was buried right inside the apartment of who? Aisha. So the Prophets of Allah have things exclusive for them. Khususiyat. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq narrates, we are not inherited. All that we leave, whatever we leave is what? Sadaqah. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu also reported this hadith. This hadith is from the ahadithul mutawatirah, from those ahadith that many companions have reported. Like Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he also reported this hadith, that the Prophets of Allah are not inherited. Whatever they leave behind is sadaqah for the entirety of the ummah, because they are like fathers to everybody in the ummah. I teach you, I educate you. Because parents, from the duties of parents is to teach and educate their children. So parents educate their children. The Anbiya and the Rasu also teach and educate us. So the scholars say they are like fathers to us, to everybody. When they die, the property they leave behind goes back to everybody. It goes back to the central force of the Muslim community. It is not something that will be inherited by their children alone. So we will see that hadith and the fact the Anbiya and the Rasul, they are not inherited. It conforms with the text from the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. It also conforms with good reasoning. In the reports of Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu of this instance, he said, جاءت فاطمة إلى أبي بكر فقالت من يرثك. رضي الله عنها came to Abu Bakr and speak and asked him, من يرثك, who will inherit you? قال أهلي وولدي, my wife and my children. قالت فلا أرث أبي. What is wrong in my case? لا أرث أبي, I will not inherit the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, my father. فقال أبو بكر الصديق, and then Abu Bakr al-Siddiq responded and said, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يقول, I heard the Prophet صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم saying that لا نور, we are not inherited. We, the prophets of Allah, we are not inherited. And it is not just about inheritance alone that prophets of Allah are different. They are different in a number of things, some of which we had mentioned earlier. Like when the prophet is buried on the spot died, that part of the earth will be opened and he will be placed inside. That is place for burial. Like the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, after his wife cannot marry any other woman. These rulings concerning the death of the messengers of Allah, one of it is that the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, la nurasu. So Hurairah radiallahu anhu reported that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq now said, wala inni a'ulu man kana Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ya'uluhu wa unfiqu ala man kana Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam yunfiqu alayhi, walakinni, but as for me, what I would do is كل من كان رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام يعوده, I will support, I provide the finance, I will maintain every person that the Prophet was in charge of maintaining, like his wife and all those under him, I will maintain them. رضي الله عنه, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, ولكني أعول من رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام يعوله. I would support, I would provide for every person that the Prophet was in charge of providing for. وأنفق على من كان رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام ينفق عليه. And I would spend the money upon all those that the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام was, I would spend on them. The difference was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu to Fatima radiallahu anha. He said, فَوَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ, Fatima radiallahu anha وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ, he found that uncomfortable. He was big, angry, he would that thing away from the matter. When Abu Bakr as-Siddiq saw all of these, radiallahu anhu, from the things that he said to Fatima radiallahu anha was that وَإِنِّي عَلَيْهَا الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْهَا, I swear by Allah that I heard the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he heard the Prophet saying that what they leave is sadaqah. إِنَّمَا يَأْكُلُ آلُ مُحَمَّدٍ مِنْ هَذَا الْمَالِ. Then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, وَإِنِّي وَاللَّهِ لَا أُغَيِّرُ شَيْئًا مِنْ صَدَقَةِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ عَنْ حَالِهَا الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْهَا. All the sadaqat, all the gifts, all the charities, the way the Prophet used to distribute, عَامِلَ بِهِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ, and I would do and handle those gifts the way the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was handling them. فَأَبَى أَبُو بَكْرٍ أَنْ يَدْفَعَ إِلَى فَاطِمَةَ شَيْئًا. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq rejected handing over anything to Fatima. Why? Because the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, he has said to him that La nurasu, we the Prophet of Allah, La nurasu ma tarakna فهو صدقة. Whatever we leave is sadaqah. فوجدت عليه. Fatima radiallahu anha was uncomfortable. ثم تعللت. Then later انشغلت عنها. She got busy with other things. And then she forgot that matter. Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi continued and said, روى إسماعيل ابن أبي خالد عن الشعبي قال إسماعيل ابن أبي خالد reported from Al-Imam Sharaḥīl al-Sha'bi that لما مرضت فاطمة أذنا, when Fatima radiallahu anha was ill. Don't forget, like Aisha told us radiallahu anha, Aisha said, عاشت بعد رسول ستة أشهر, that Fatima only spent 6 months بعد رسول الله, after the death of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. It wasn't long. All of these that we are talking about happened within the period of 6 months. The Prophet passed away, he was buried 6 months after Fatima died. So all of these discussions the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam that Fatima asked for a period of 6 months. لما مرضت فاطمة, when Fatima she passed away, أتى أبو بكر فاستأذن. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq went to visit her, and then he asked. When we read about Aisha too, when Aisha was about passing away, Abdullah ibn Abbas, people of honor, if they are people of respect in the community, males, people of honor, see in the community, they can visit people under them in that community, like the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam visited Sa'ib, that woman who used to fall down from epilepsy, and then it was about in Al-Adab al-Mufrad, in fact, an entire heading we read. It's lawful for Abu Bakr and Siddiq to come and visit Fatima when Fatima was ill. But don't forget, we must be certain that the woman must be properly and her men of esteem in the community come to do so. Have some thoughts will emerge from such visits. We may not know these in details in the classes about Aisha, Adab al-Mufrad. So Al-Imam al-Sha'bi, he said, لما مرضت فاطمة أبو بكر فاستأذن. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Uthman, he came, فاستأذن. He asked for permission to come in. Forget, in one of the classes recently in Al-Adab al-Mufrad, we emphasized this istizan, asking permission to come in. The way to do it is that you say taslim, assalamu alaikum, then you knock. Or you say assalamu alaikum, then say adkhul, should I come in? If you are knocking, don't say adkhul. So Ali ibn Abi Talib, فقال علي يا فاطمة. Ali ibn Abi Talib said, هذا أبو بكر يستأذن عليك. This is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu يستأذن عليك. He is asking for permission to come to your apartment. فقالت, allow him to come. Do you like it that I permit him to come in? Ikhwa, oh women, this is a woman being mannerly with her husband. The authority to allow someone to come in or out of the house lies in the hands of the husband. The authority for someone from outside to allow someone to come inside especially in the presence of the husband, it lies in the hands of the husband. The big comment. Allah Anha returned the matter to her husband. She said, Atuhibbu an adhana lahu. Do you like it that I permit? Allah na'am. Ali said, yes, I do. I allow him to come in. In between here, Imām Adh-Dhahabi said, Kult. I say, Amilat as-sunnah radiyallahu anha. She has acted upon the sunnah. فَلَمْ تَأْذَنْ فِي بَيْتِ زَوْجِهَا إِلَّا بِأَمْرِهِ. She was not going to permit someone to come into the house of her husband إِلَّا بِأَمْرِهِ. يعني بِأَمْرِ الزَّوْجِ. She was not going to any coming to her husband's house except upon the permission of Ida to Nisa'il Mu'minin. Is the head of all the Muslim women. Yet, when it comes to coming into the house of her husband, she knew that that was an exclusive right of the husband. So even when the husband was asking her, this is, he was still saying, do you want him to come? Radiyallahu anhuma. You can see how much respect Fatima had for her husband, Ali ibn Abi Talib. That is the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That woman Fatima. Yet, when they do it, they're behaving as if it's a privilege. May Allah protect us. Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi continued with the narration. قال Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, the report continued and said, فَأَذِنَتْ لَهُ. So Fatima, upon the permission of her husband, أَذِنَتْ لَهُ, he allowed Abu Bakr as-Siddiq to come. فَدَخَلَ عَلَيْهَا يَتَرَضَّاهَا. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq now came to her apartment where she was with her husband. فَدَخَلَ عَلَيْهَا. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq came to that apartment. يَتَرَضَّاهَا. He was seeking her pleasure. He was seeking to please her. He was seeking to make her don't feel bad. Oh Fatima, I'm following the sunnah. Your daddy, my friend, and her. He was coming to make her feel pleased. Don't be disturbed. Don't feel bad. It's not a denial. It's staying upon what your husband left us upon. What his father left us upon, that is what I am trying to insist to be upon. وقال Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, Wallahi, I swear by Allah, ما تركت الدار والمال والأهل والعشيرة إلا ابتغاء مرضات الله ورسوله ومرضاتكم أهل البيت. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, Wallahi ورسوله ومرضاتكم. All of what I have done is by way of seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. وَمَرْضَاتِكُمْ and alayhi salatu wasalam. That is all that I seek from tarku ad-dari wal-mali wal-ahli wal-ashira. When I left all of these, I left the home, I left the mal, I said to please Allah. When I insist that this is what should be done, I want to please Allah with it. O Fatima, call Al-Imam Al-Sha'abi, who was narrating the incident, said, ثُمَّ تَرَضَّهَا حَتَّى رَضِيَتْ. Abu Bakr anha hatta radiyat, until Fatima radiyallahu anha, she became pleased, as Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was appealing to her to make her see reasons why he has insisted radiyallahu anhu that the property that the Prophet left behind was to be re-injected into the general accounts and coffers of the community, rather than given as inheritance to those who were in the position to inherit him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, like Fatima and who? Abbas, radiyallahu anhum. And that is what you would see. After the death of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, it was the time of Omar. Omar was also upon that. After Omar, it was upon that till he passed away. And Umar ibn al-Khattab was upon that till he passed away. And likewise Uthman ibn Affan and also Ali ibn Abi Talib. He also became from among those who reported that hadith that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said, La nurathu, we are not inherited. Ma tarakna sadaqatun, whatever we leave behind is sadaqah. Innama Muhammadin fi hadha al-mal. One thing, all of what we are entitled to from it is what we eat and maintain ourselves with. When the Prophet dies, alayhi salatu salam, the entirety of the wealth returns to the inherited by the Anhum, including the husband of Fatima, Ali ibn Abi Talib, head of the Muslims, came to carry along Fatima radiallahu anha so that he does not feel bad. She was appealing to her. ثُمَّ تَرَضَّاهَا, he went on, appeal to her, hatta radiyat, until he saw that she had become pleased. Radiyallahu anhum. Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi, in the last paragraph that followed this, he said, توفيت بعد النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام ب5 أشهر أو نحوها. توفيت عائشة فاطمة ب5 أشهر, for 5 months. 5 months after the Prophet died. This is actually one of the views regarding this matter. But Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi said, أو نحوها, or something like that. But a clear cut to ashhur that Fatima radiallahu anha for 6 months after the death of the Prophet, and that hadith occurs in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Al-Imam Zabi أو 25 سنة. Fatima radiallahu anha lived for 4 or 25 years. Or 25. Don't forget, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam spent 13 years in Makkah and about 10 years in Medina, making 23 as a prophet by a year or 2. So if you take it that she was born a year before the Prophet was raised as a prophet, it will mean that she spent. Still an opinion that Fatima radiallahu anha spent 29 years, and that is the view of the majority, that she spent 29 years radiallahu anha. There's opinion she spent 24 years. There's opinion she spent 25 years. And the bulk of what said regarding her age was that she lived for 29 years. Al-Imām Adh-Dhahabi went, وَالْأَوَّلُ أَصَحُّ. Authentic. What is the fourth? The fourth that he called was that Ashat 24 sana. Yes. So there are 3 opinions regarding how long she lived. Some say she lived for 24. Some say she lived for 25. Some said she lived for 29. But Al-Zahabi said, Rahimahullah, wal awwalu asahhu. But lived for 24 years. Radiallahu anha. And then we can also passed away. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Rabi'ul Awwal, the Prophet alayhi of Rabi'ul Awwal. It is almost an ijma amongst the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam passed away. It reported authentically in Al-Bukhari and Muslim by Fatima radiallahu anha spent. Right? So in which month was it that in which radiallahu and Fatima radiallahu anha was younger than Zainab, زوجة في أبي العاص ابن الربيع. Zainab ibn the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had a daughter. He was married to who? Abu al-As ibn al-Rabi'. وكانت أصغر من زينب. As for Fatima, كانت أصغر من زينب. She was younger than Zainab, the wife of younger than Ruqayya. Fatima was younger than Zainab. Zainab was older. Fatima radiallahu anha wa min Ruqayya was also in Affan. Uthman ibn Affan, Dhunurin. The first child of the Prophet that he married was Ruqayya. This Ruqayya radiallahu anha. Al-Dhahabi continued and said, وَقَدْ انْقَطَعَ نَسَبُ النَّبِيِّ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ إِلَّا مِنْ قِبَلِ فَاطِمَةَ. We had answered this question in a previous lineage of the Prophet ﷺ stopped. إِلَّا مِنْ قِبَلِ فَاطِمَةَ, except through Fatima. The lineage of the Prophet stopped. Meaning that Zainab, for example, Zainab, the wife of Abu al-As, she had a daughter, Umama, who became the wife of Ali ibn Abi Talib after Fatima. This Umama, radiallahu anha, will still come back to that. Umama lam yurzak min Ali awlada. She was not given, she did not have any child for Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiallahu anha. Anyway, we'll come back to that. But the point here is that in Qata nasabu Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam illa min kibali Fatima. The lineage of the Prophet ended from all other angles except from Fatima radiallahu anha. لأن أمامة بنت زينب, because Umama, the daughter of Zainab, التي كان النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام يحملها في صلاته, that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam used to carry during his salah. We remember the Prophet would carry her during salah. That is Umama, the daughter of Zainab, the daughter of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. This Umama tazawwajat bi Aliyin. She got married to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Don't forget. After Fatima died, Ali ibn Abi Talib married Umama, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So Zainab tazawwajat bi Ali ibn Abi Talib. She married Ali ibn Abi Talib, but she did not get any child from Ali ibn Abi Talib. ثم after Ali ibn Abi Talib married Al-Mughira ibn Nawfal ibn Abdul Muttalib al-Hashimi. Seerah ibn Nawfal ibn Abdul Muttalib, who was from the descendants of her, and for her second husband after Ali ibn Abi Talib, her قال الزبير ibn Bakkar, Al-Imam al-Zubayr ibn Bakkar said, in Qur'an, one descendants also ended. The descendant from Mughira ibn Nawfal. They gradually ended. The lineage gradually ended. That was why Adh-Dhahabi said in the earlier paragraph that وَقَدْ انْقَطَعَ نَسَبُ النَّبِيِّ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ إِلَّا مِنْ ended. Even Zainab that had children married to Ali, she became a few children with her. Those ones too stopped illa min qibali Fatima, except from the aspects Fatima radiallahu anha. I think we would like to stop here, inshallah, and continue from here in our next class regarding Fatima to bint Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.